Oh. All right. Good morning, Arjun. It's very, very good to see you once again. Thank you
Great day, Christine.
for, yes, thank you for accepting to do this. Now, let's not assume that everyone listening to this has been on our previous conversation. And just greeted, welcome everybody. Welcome. My name is Christine. This is Soft Skills Conversations. And that is where we have informal but informative conversation with industry players and people who are doing a good job in their space. And Arjun is a friend of mine. We met a few years ago in Dubai, lives in Dubai. He's going to tell you all of this about himself. But we met at a conference where we were both facilitating, and we have been in touch on and off since then. And even now with the COVID pandemic, we are able to connect online. So Arjun, thank you so, so much for doing this. Maybe as an introduction, you tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much, Christine, and a wonderful hello to all our viewers from Kenya and indeed around the world. It's always a treat when great people meet, Christine, and meeting you is always enriching. The work that you're doing in empowering, enabling, equipping other people, particularly during this crisis situation, is fabulous. And I encourage you to keep that up.
Thank
So, a
you.
little bit about me, if that's what you wanted me to do now. Is that what you
Yes,
wanted me
please.
to
Yes,
do?
please. Just as an
Okay, okay,
introduction. Yes.
excellent. So, I have a background in banking. I spent my early career working in banking. I studied in Australia prior to that, did my master's degree, and soon after my banking career got into the profession that I am in now, which is training, coaching, motivational speaking, and writing as well. So this is the work that I do. This is where I'm from, and yep, that's my background. And I've been doing this for 22 years now. I've been on my own, and been living in Dubai for the last 13. So yep, that's the succinct
Oh,
version of
wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. May I ask where you're from originally? You went to school in Australia, you live in Dubai, you sound very international, but where are you
yes.
from originally?
Yeah, my origins are in India. So
Okay.
I grew up, I was born and grew up in the country of India. And I was very fortunate to have been raised in a relatively open minded environment
Okay.
that gave me exposure to the international realm very early on. And studied in a school where there was great emphasis on the English language. And our English language teacher was schooled in the UK and was very particular about our diction and punctuation and grammar. And so that is where things started for me, and started traveling at a fairly early age, and went on to study commerce and had some amazing life experiences growing up, and then off to Australia, and then banking. I came back to India and I worked in two foreign banks. I worked with the ANZ Bank in corporate banking, and I worked that's Australia and New Zealand Bank. I worked with ING, which is a Dutch bank in retail banking, and soon after that started on my own, which is what I do today.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's a nice round sort of introduction to what we are talking about. Now, today I thought we have a discussion concerning coaching. I want to understand coaching. Maybe first of all, we distinguish coaching from mentorship. What's the difference between coaching and mentorship? And before we go into that, Arjun, I'm just noticing your physical background. It looks
Yes.
very interesting. You have quite a few signs back there. Would you like to give me, like, what's going on there?
So earlier on, I had just that. I don't know.
Yes,
People
that's
might see that
familiar
in the
from the
earlier
last
video.
slide.
All
Yes.
right. So that's like a feng shui symbol of mountain
Okay.
bordering India and Nepal. So that's kind of it's supposed to bring good luck. I had a gentleman who I bumped into the elevator in the place where I stayed earlier, and he was into feng shui, and he kind of gave me this. He said, "This will bring you good luck." So I stuck it up there. And then when I moved into this home and started doing online events, because COVID-19 brought forth the entire online format for
Okay.
coaching, training, and the kind of conversations that we're having, I realized that, hey, I just have that mountain in the background. I need to embellish things a little bit more and get it to represent who I really am. And I am a very holistic kind of person. I'm spiritual. I love esoteric work, and therefore a lot of the symbolism behind me has esoteric origins, whether it's the yin yang symbol, which we're quite familiar with from Taoism, and there are symbols from energy healing and Reiki. There's a unicorn there, which is supposed to be a magical, mystical creature. Those are the pyramids, and the pyramids also carry a lot of energy to it. And that's the representation of the biomagnetic field that surrounds all our bodies. And science now shows that we have a magnetic field around our body, which comes from the electrical processes and chemical processes taking place inside our body. And I just picked up some images of I just typed into Google spiritual evolved beings, and I got these kind of images, and I liked them, and so I just printed, cut, and stuck it up there. So yeah, it's just a random conglomeration of very holistic ideas, and a true representation of who I really am. I'm also very fond of money, so I put gold, gold bars there.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
I think, you know what I think? We are all very fond of money, but not a lot of us admit that we are fond of money.
Yes.
I think so. I think so.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes. We have
interesting.
a
I
lot
just
of.
thought
Yes.
I just thought I comment on that
Thank you.
because there's a lot of different pictures in your background, and all of them,
Yes.
the hint, the clue is something to do with spiritualism,
Yes.
which obviously will be another conversation for another day.
A whole
But,
other video. We can
that's
make that a series.
that's a whole other video. Yeah, that's an entirely different video. But it's a good idea to acknowledge that we are spiritual. It's, we tend to allow religions to differentiate us, but at the end of the day, we are all spiritual beings having a human experience.
Human experience.
So yeah, I think we can just leave that there. Now let's go into coaching. Let's go into coaching. What's the difference between a coach and a mentor?
That's a great question. And if you go back a couple of decades, textbooks that have been written on these subjects have a clear differentiation between the two. And typically the headings are: a mentor is ABC, a mentor isn't ABC. And then a coach is 1, 2, 3, and a coach isn't 1, 2, 3. And that's where it started. In the last 5, 10 years or so that I have been in this profession, I have observed that mentoring and coaching are now merging into one another. Mentors also serve the role of a coach, and coaches also behave as mentors. Very strictly speaking, a mentor is an exemplar, somebody who lives at a standard that some other people want to emulate. Right? So for example, I have a mentor, his name is Basil Harris. He lives in Sydney, Australia. And there's things about his life that I resonate with, I admire, and therefore I model and I emulate him. So he is a mentor of mine. Coaching, very strictly speaking, is a process. It is a process of communication. It is a process of using questions or coaching questions as a tool to empower, equip, enable ambitious people who want to get ahead in life. Now, when I coach people who come to me with challenges, and I coach people who come to me with causes. A cause, I use the word cause because it starts with a C and it's a synonym to the word goal. So you can say a goal, a mission, a vision, an objective, a dream, a desire, somebody who wants an end result, just an ambitious person who wants to get ahead. Or it could be somebody who's going through or growing through a challenge. And I use processes, and my processes typically are the asking of questions in order to help the coachee. So the coach helps the coachee to discover resources within themselves so that they can now evict themselves from the challenge or move towards the objective or the goal. So that's kind of like the broad strokes picture: coaching, mentoring, what coaching is, what mentoring is, etc. And like I said, coaches nowadays, behave as mentors, because when you get into the field of coaching, you start reading and studying, you now become a model for other people to follow. And therefore, by definition, you're a mentor. And mentors know that one of the best ways to lead people is to coach them. So there you go. Yeah. The borders are blurred now.
That's a very comprehensive answer, and I like that. I especially like that you said ambition, because it has to be, that's the one thing you can give somebody. If I don't have ambition, then I can't be helped. So I like that you mentioned ambition. Now, how do I realize I need a coach?
Okay, so if you're wondering whether you need a coach, that means you're curious.
Yes.
And my teacher says it very wisely. Perhaps what you want to ask yourself is, are you curious or are you serious?
Oh, wow. I like that.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I could be sitting at a cafe with somebody, and let's say the person has bought a brand new phone. I'm like, oh, that's a lovely phone. It's interesting. And what does it do? And show me the panoramic picture format and how do you do the videos and da da da, etc. And then the person looks at me and he says, yeah, it's really good and you should go get it. In fact, there's a store right over there where they're selling it at a discount. And I go, oh, can I just get another cup of coffee? Right.
That's
So,
curious, right?
okay, so I'm curious, which is fine, nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I am serious, at the very least, I'm going to go there and chat with
At
the
least
guy and,
take a look. Yes.
yeah, and take a look and touch and feel and then plan and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of, so there's that. Now, this is true even in business, Christine, and you are in business when you approach a client. The curiosity in the entrepreneur is this client curious or is this client serious? And sometimes a curious client can become serious when you engage them for a little bit longer. That's the art of persuasion, right? That's sales,
Okay.
that's marketing, that's perception, that is rapport and relationship and closing a deal. So that could happen. But here we are with an individual who we're coaching. Now, before I go further, I'd like to say that coaching is one, but there is also team coaching or group coaching. Group or team coaching kind of used synonymously, all right? So it's either one-to-one or it can be done in teams. Team coaching is becoming very popular now around the world and as a means to enable people. And in team coaching, you work with smaller groups of people, have more deeper, intimate conversations towards ultimate objectives. So yeah, that's don't know if I answered your question, but I kind of gave you the broad strokes of what that is.
That's another very comprehensive. I'm just wondering, when you say team coaching, uh, is that people who come together, or do you randomly pick these people? And how many people are those who can do the coaching together when you talk about
Okay.
group coaching?
All right. So we got to understand B2B and B2C, right?
Okay.
So B2B, say you are a business, I'm a business. So let's say I'm a business, I'm the service provider. Okay. And there's another organization, a company. It could be a bank, it could be a pharmaceutical company, an IT organization, or just a mom and pop store who has a team of people. So the organization approaches the organization saying, we would like to use your services to coach our team members.
That's B2B.
That's B2B. And in a B2B setting, it could be either one-to-one or it can be one-to-many, which means one-to-one
Ah,
coaching or team coaching.
but the transaction is between one business to another.
The transaction is business to business. So
Okay.
here, I need to be talking to the key stakeholders, inquiring about their business objectives, because that is the reason why they are investing money and time in an external resource such as myself in
Mm.
order to empower and equip their teams to achieve their business objectives. So I've got to be fair to the objectives of the individual, sorry, of the organization. And while I'm working with the individual, I'm helping the individual to sort out their individual issues in order to enable them to achieve the organizational objectives. But the overarching objective is still the organizational objectives. Okay? So that's a B2B situation. In a B2C, an individual will approach me. So somebody who's a working professional, business owner, somebody who has a job, lost a job, student, housewife, mother, father, brother, sister, husband, wife, doesn't matter. Somebody out there on the planet perhaps watches one of my videos on YouTube. I have a great video that's titled What is Coaching on my YouTube channel. Encourage
Oh,
anybody to
that
watch that.
sounds good. I will put a link to it
Yeah,
down here. I think that's a
yeah.
good idea, so that then
It's a
anyone
great
who
video.
wants to watch
Yeah,
that can. Yeah.
and in that video, I take people through a coaching process. So you can watch that video and be coached by that video and experience coaching and how it
Oh,
works as well.
oh,
Okay.
that's beautiful. I think that's very
Yes.
useful for a beginner, isn't it?
It's a hands-on experience of coaching when you just do what the video is asking you to do. So you might have to pause the video certain times and then do the exercise, come back. The video is short, but the exercises require you to pause and continue. Okay.
Okay.
So in a B2C situation, an individual has approached me and they come to me with a situation. In that scenario, I give them a detailed questionnaire. I have 18 questions. Most of them are open-ended questions where I inquire into uh, So what somebody says, so what do you inquire into? Well, three things. This is where are you? So this is where I am. This is where I want to be. What do I need to do? Where I am, where I want to be, and what do I think I need to do, or what have I done, or what's going on right now. So past, present, and future kind of thing. That questionnaire helps people to articulate, to express their situation to me, and I read all of that before getting into the first session with them. And that coaching session is then one-to-one. So in a B2C, it's typically just one-to-one, and in a B2B, it can be one-to-one or one-to-many, depending on what the organization wishes to achieve. And that's kind of like the format of how a coaching session is conducted.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. That's interesting. Now, from an individual, I want us to look at this more like from an individual perspective. I'm an
Yes.
individual,
Yeah.
and you say two things. You said, first of all, I'll probably be growing through something, or
Yeah.
I will have an objective to which I want to I want to move from point A to B, and
Yeah.
therefore I need the help of a coach
Yeah.
in order to be able to get there. Now, I'm curious, are there different kinds of coaches? Because you said it could be a man, a woman, it could be a young person, an older person, a professional, a mother at home. What are there different kinds of coaches, and how do I know what coach to pick and what coach
Yeah.
to follow?
Okay. That's a great question. There certainly are different kinds of coaches. So, for example, there are coaches that specialize only in career coaching.
Okay.
All right. And they will call themselves a career coach.
Okay.
Okay. These are people who have a very good understanding of career pathways in various industries, for example, hierarchies, roles, uh, reward and recognition systems, payroll, and how all of that works. Very, very specialized, very, very focused. When someone comes to me for pure career coaching, I usually guide them to someone else, saying, listen, that's not an area of specialization for me. Okay. Now, there are other areas. For example, another area of coaching is relationship coaching, where people are just struggling with relationships. All right, that could be a relationship with a loved one, with a colleague, and with strangers in general. And all of that is actually a relationship with themselves. Pretty much any relationship coach will tell you. Now, that's an area that I do specialize in, where people come to me with relationship issues. Another area of coaching is leadership coaching. So leadership coaching is a situation where somebody either wants to become a leader, so a potential leader, or I'm working now with the head of HR of a large organization here in Dubai, and he's the head of HR, but he wants to go from head of HR local to head of HR global. That's his career ambition. And the primary skill that we're working on with him is the skill of leadership, because he has subject matter competence, he has operational competence, but now he wishes to acquire leadership competence. So the genre of coaching that we're working on with him is leadership coaching.
Okay.
Okay. Another area of coaching that's popular in the corporate world is called executive coaching.
Okay.
Right? That's a term that is very commonplace in the corporate world. Anyone who is in HR watching this video will nod their head up and down when they hear the word executive coaching, because they've heard it 7,825 times approximately. Okay.
In every Monday meeting.
That's right.
Comes up in every meeting, yes.
And as the term suggests, it is the coaching of a working executive. So coaching in your role and in your functions so that you optimize your performance within your unit, within your function and role, in order to deliver at your best and progress further. Okay. Now, the extension of executive coaching could be leadership coaching, for example.
Okay.
So from executive, you could move to leadership coaching, etc. Now, the title that I use to define the coaching that I do is called life coaching.
Okay. That would have been my next question. What area are you in? Okay.
All right.
Yes.
And life, for me, the way a life coach defines themselves is areas that affect our life. I mean, so broadly speaking, the two areas that affect your life are personal and professional. Broadly speaking, isn't that right?
Covers my life, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. or you could say physical, mental, and spiritual. Okay, all right. That kind of covers my life too, you know. You could say career, social, relationships. Oh, well, those kind of three areas that cover my life too. There's something called the wheel of life. You know, you have your
Mm.
physical life, which is your health, your mental, which is your personal growth, your spiritual, which is your relationship with yourself and God, career and finances, which is your work and your money, relationships with loved ones and others, career, relationships. Yeah, so that kind of covers. That's like the wheel of life: physical, mental, spiritual, and social. Social is the next one, which is your networking and reaching out to people, etc. So those are the areas that I work with people on, and the pre-questionnaire that I provide people in life coaching helps me as a coach to identify where people are at, but most importantly, helps the coachee to articulate what I call as hashtag truth. Hashtag truth. And hashtag truth is, this is my current situation, bare and true and real as it is. Let us first begin to admit where we currently are before we set a target. So if we go from hashtag truth to hashtag target, before you set hashtag target, we've got to admit where we currently are. Look, this is the situation. I'm going through a divorce, or I'm having a challenge in my career, or I'm doing really well in the area of finances, or my business is going through a downturn. What is the current situation right now? Let's look at where we are. Then we can start plotting a course. Then we can start plotting a course from truth to target. And a lot of the work that I do also with individuals is to help people to identify whether the target that they have chosen is really their target, or it's a target that they have been taught that they should have by the means of society, which is a very deep subject, and that could be a
I think
long
so
discussion.
too. I think so too. That's a whole other video. That's a whole other video, because a lot of the things, if you ask, even an adult, not just children, what would you like to be? What are you aspiring to get? It's possibly not what I want to get. It's what society and everything has taught me that I should want.
It's a scripted response,
I've
Christine.
actually met a guy who does not want to make a lot of money. He came from a traumatic family and they were very,
Yes.
very wealthy. And he deliberately does not want to become. When I first interacted with that, I was surprised, but now I've come to understand it. It's not everybody who would like to have $1 million. It's
That's right.
just not everybody who'd like to have $1 million. Coming from your background, coming from your history, you might have had traumatic experiences. And I really love what you said about truth, because um, in some areas it's very easy to see it, like in finances, that this is the situation where you are, easy to see bank balance versus what's going out every month. That's very easy to see. But there's a lot of other areas in our lives where we find that we are not facing up to the truth. I'm just wondering, are you able to give us an example, for example, what someone might have gone, what you might have discovered, without of course naming names, but what
Yeah.
are some of your experiences with someone who had not faced the truth? What areas would because anybody listening to this will think, okay, what do you mean not facing up to the truth, not knowing where I am at? Maybe you give an example or two.
Yes. So I coached a gentleman towards the end of last year, right? And approached me through a common friend and spoke to me on the phone. And I said, he said, I was in this job and I'm out of the job right now, and I want to move on, but I'm just kind of very conflicted. And I think I was treated very unfairly in my profession. And I'm in Dubai and I'm without a job. So when I think of someone who's in Dubai and without a job, my first thought is, hey, you need to sort yourself out, because when money runs out and your visa runs out, you will be evicted from this country because you're not in your home country here. So it's typically a challenging situation. That's what kind of came through. I got him to even fill up the questionnaire. It was still a lot about career and what I want to do and the direction I want to move, and uh, overcoming procrastination with regard to picking up the phone and making calls. That was coming through in the document and in the conversation. I'm preparing for that, right? So I go prepared to the first coaching session with ideas to help him to overcome procrastination, with tools to help him to deal with fear and insecurity, with concepts that can help him to develop his mindset and make him stronger to get through this situation. So there we are, we're talking, I'm asking him a few questions. What's really going on? What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Who have you approached? Who haven't you approached? yet, and so on and so forth. We're going through that. Have you got a game plan? What do you typically do when you get up on Sunday morning? In the UAE, we start our week on Sunday to Thursday. So for you, it's a Monday. For us, it's a Sunday, right? So those kind of things. And I'm kind of getting responses where there seems to be no commitment towards doing what he should be doing. And I'm getting curious. So I ask him, I say, let's just call him John. I say, John, I'm just curious. You are in a situation without a job. And in the last 15 minutes, you've told me that for the last couple of weeks, you've pretty much been getting up late and watching TV in the evenings and eating chips and going for a walk. What's really going on? And then we start talking about his family. And I discover that his family is actually a very, very, very wealthy family. And he has oodles of money. And there's really no issue as far as money is concerned. He doesn't have to work a day in his life. He could be happy and rich and really okay. And he will not have to worry about bills being paid or food on the table or even going out and partying on weekends for the rest of his life. This comes through after about an hour and 10 minutes of conversation. Because I'm trying to make headway, and every direction I'm going with questions or ideas, I'm kind of facing a block. And I'm like, what's going on? What's causing this person not to be motivated, right? Human beings are motivated by two things and two things only: pleasure and pain. Okay. Pleasure and pain. The pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. These are the only things that motivate you, me, we, everybody on this planet. When we brush our teeth in the morning, we brush it to avoid the pain of bad breath and cavities and going to the dentist, and the pain of embarrassment when you're talking to someone with bad breath, or to have the pleasure of healthy teeth and fresh breath, right? Everything. And I'm trying to find his pain and his pleasure, and I'm not making any headway. And then we start talking about the family. He names the family. I discover that they're very, very wealthy because I kind of know who these people are and so forth. And then the conversation changes, and I ask him, so what is happiness to you? And then he starts talking about what he wants to do with his life and make films, and he wants to exercise and so forth. And I said, what's holding you back from doing that? And he said, I really want to do it. And then I changed the question. I said, who's holding you back from doing that? And then he starts talking about his wife and the communication challenges that he's having with his wife. Oh. And then we spend the next 20 to 30 minutes talking about him and his wife. And I just shut up and I listen. And at the end of the session, because these people pay me for 3 sessions in advance, by the end of an hour 10 minutes, I wasn't getting any breakthrough. That was the one session. And I shared this with a classroom session that I was teaching, coaching to some leaders. I said, I had my hand in my pocket, Christine, ready to take the money out and return it to him because I wasn't helping him. Until he started speaking about the relationship between him and his spouse. And at the end of the session, 1 hour and 45 minutes in, I don't like to go over an hour and a half. And I look at him and I say, John, I'd like to ask you something before we leave. And my question to you is, what has been the value? What has been the value of this session to you? What has been the value of this session to you? He leans forward, grabs me by the arm. This is before COVID, right? So we can touch each other.
You could touch people, yes.
He leans forward.
Strange when you actually see someone shaking hands, you're like,
you freak out.
We used to do that.
We used to touch, you know.
Yeah, you see something like, you don't know, the movie is going on, this is how you know a movie is old, people are shaking hands.
Yes. So he leans forward, grabs me by the arm, and he said, Arjun, you've given me a huge sense of relief. I just needed somebody to talk to. Thank you for being such a good listener.
Oh, wow.
And he says, I look forward to seeing you next week at such and such time and such. So he confirms the next appointment because, like I said, I typically do a coaching. For me, it's not a session. A journey is 3 sessions, 1 week apart. So in 2 weeks, we get 3 sessions done. And he was excited. And that's when for session 2, I completely changed the intention. And I said, here is a soul who really doesn't want to talk about money problems, but just wants a shoulder to cry on, somebody to talk to who will listen to him unjudgmentally. And in session 2, we speak about the relationship with the wife. We speak about his relationship with the wife's family and some kind of, with families, things happen. And there's no judgment here, but, with in-laws and with brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws and mothers and fathers-in-law, it's a dynamic that plays out. And he was just experiencing frustration that he could not express that to somebody, because in the past, whenever he was either receiving advice, which he didn't want, or he was receiving judgment, which made him feel belittled. And I did neither, and I just heard him out. And session number 2 was the whole situation. By the end of session number 2, he also tells me how much he loves his wife and how much she really loves him. And they actually have a very, very good relationship. But there was just some stuff on his chest that he needed to get off.
Get out, yes.
And they are, and by the end of session 3, my conclusion as a coach, as an expert, is that that couple will stay together for the rest of their lives because they are synergistic and they are harmonious. But here is a human being who just wanted to meet another human being to talk and let the weight off his shoulder. And after that, he's gone back, and we've spoken a few times, and they're doing great as a couple. They've invited me to their home for dinner and all of that. Very, very good stuff happening. But here's a classic example where we spoke about hashtag truth, speaking about career as the mask, as the veneer that covered up what was happening inside. Soon after that, without any career advice from me, he got a fabulous job in a fabulous organization right here in the Middle East that paid him 30% more than what he was earning earlier. Without any particular advice from me.
He addressed the root, not the symptoms.
That's it.
He was able to address. So a lot of times, the different kinds of coaching will intermingle. So that in the specific case you're giving, he came to you for career coaching, I need to find another job. But as soon as you dug a little, you discovered that it was something else. Now, I love that you said you listen without judgment. And I'm curious, how do I listen? Because even in regular relationships, it's a good idea. Maybe someone else listening to this might be like me. Yeah. I'm just wondering, how do I listen without judgment? Because I'm thinking that's a good skill to have.
Yeah. So we spoke about the physical background earlier. Christine, everybody has a past. Everybody has a background, a place where they've come from. And when somebody is hurting or carrying hurt from the past, that tends to play out in various aspects of their life. Someone asked me the other day, they said, because I have family in America, right? And in America, they have an issue with guns and people walking into schools and shooting people and children and all that stuff. Someone said, well, what kind of person walks into a school and shoots children? I said, listen, I don't know what kind of person walks into a school and shoots children, but I can tell you what kind of a person doesn't do it. A happy person doesn't do that. A fulfilled person doesn't do that. Somebody who is living from a place of purposefulness doesn't do that. But somebody who has pain within them will express the pain outside to other people, either through verbal abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse or sexual abuse. And all these kind of abuses sometimes are even experienced by people who you and me have met, particularly if I'm a coach. I sit down with people and people talk to me about their dark and diabolical past, the things that have happened to them that you and me would not wish happened to even our worst enemy. That's the place that they come from. They will even talk to you. There was a gentleman who came. We had one session. He said he just wanted one session, and very switched on, very ambitious. He started within the first 5 minutes. He confessed to me, and he said, "I've been an absolute beep," and the word beep is a word profanity that he used on himself. He was cussing himself for being very rude, untowardly, and a horrible person. He said, "I have been this horrible person, and I hold a lot of guilt for some of those horrible things that I've done." And I had to work with him on self-forgiveness more than anything else, which he was starting to come about. He just needed me to kind of tip him over the edge. But I also reminded him, once we discovered his past, the reason he hurt others is because he had experienced hurt himself.
Yes, because hurt people hurt, right?
Hurting people hurt others. John Maxwell says this. Hurting people hurt others. Number 2, hurting people are easily hurt by others. And number 3, hurting people hurt themselves.
Yes, yes. Sometimes they
Okay?
turn it
Yeah.
inward. Yes.
They turn it inwards.
Mm.
It's called self-incarceration. They put themselves down, they're constantly belittling themselves or attracting situations into their life, self-persecution. Okay?
And you can pick
Which,
that up in their conversation, right?
yes, yes, yes. But then you've got to understand what makes people what they are. It's our nature and our nurture, right?
Mm,
Our nurture is our environment that we
mm,
grew up in. Who knows what happened in the school or the home where the person grew up? You and me have no clue, no clue. Crazy things might have happened that affect people that have affected them in their childhood or growing up with relationship with their father, or if someone's been through a divorce, or all of the above, and all of that stuff. And then the nature is your genetic proclivity to behave in a particular way. And there's a lot of science now showing that you and me tend to even inherit behavioral tendencies from our ancestors in
mm,
our genes, which bring out certain behaviors. So that's
mm,
our genetics and our epigenetics. Genetics are called nature, epigenetics are called nurture. Epigenetics, the word epigenetics means factors outside the genes. So they've done studies where they've studied twins, say two twins, right? Brother, sister, brother, brother, sister, sister, etc. But similar genetics, absolutely similar genetics, but the twins go out and have different life experiences. 20 years later, they take their genetic test again, and the genes have changed. Now the genes are no longer the same because of epigenetics.
ah, because of what
Factors
happened to me in the last 20 years.
factors
My
outside the genes
genetic.
that change the gene.
Okay.
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 So, like we say, oh, I have diabetes because my grandfather and my father and my grandmother and my mother had diabetes. Therefore, I have and you keep saying that and you believe that, you will get diabetes. But that's no longer true. You do not have to get a particular ailment or affliction just because it is part of your ancestral DNA. Your thoughts, which is the greatest format for epigenetics, can reprogram your genetics through the secretion of hormones through various glands, which is why happy people typically tend to activate the genetics of good health, and unhappy
Mm,
people activate the genetics of poor health, broadly speaking. And science is proving this now very empirically, and there are books written about this and so forth. So this is where, so when you understand this, it's like, okay, listen, let me not judge someone. If an angry taxi driver, a poor a server at a restaurant, a rude person on the street, um, somebody in the family who behaves in a manner with you that you think they should not have behaved. When you step back and you ask, I wonder what makes this person treat people this way, you become a little bit more forgiving uh, and have grace towards their behavior rather than anger. So
I
this
like
is a
that.
yeah.
I like that. But I am reminded of something that I've always lived by. Um, because we're talking about how our thoughts are going to affect even our physical body. And I read this when I was a young girl, and I have always tried to live by it. It said that when a girl is 16 years old and she's not beautiful, it's not her fault. But if she's 60 and she isn't beautiful, it is her fault. So it has to do. And while that is said on a light
Yeah.
touch, really, your thoughts will determine your mood, will determine your reality, will determine your physical wellness. So
Yes.
it is important to do some of the inner work that is required so
Yes.
that then you're able to come from, because I, from what you're saying, a lot of the situations we have to live with in life, whether it's in career or in relationship or in finances, whatever, has to do with what is going on inside. Because I might come to you for career coaching, like in the example you gave, but really what's going on is in the relationship. Really, what's going on is in my traumatic experience, what I came from. Now, do you sometimes have to coach people out of those situations? Like, have you had people who've come out from possibly a battered childhood? Somebody who came from, a traumatic family background, and now you've had to work with them to overcome this? Have you had such situations?
So I've worked with 5 people who've been suicidal so far. 5 people who've come to me in my
Mm,
22 years of doing this, where they've sat down with me and pretty much said, "Listen, this is the last straw. I am pretty much decided that I want to get done with this thing called life, and I'm just here to see if I should or shouldn't kind of thing, you know? So
Almost like a final cry for help.
yeah, you could say that. You could say that. I'm humbled. I'm humbled and I'm grateful to say that all five of them are doing really well today.
Oh,
One of them is doing women empowerment workshops, which is brilliant. I love it. And with each of these
I'm
situations,
just
there has
curious, is it a woman herself?
I know it's a man.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yes,
interesting.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And kudos to him. Well, to be fair, he did it for a while and now he's doing something else. I'm like, wow. So it was okay. It was a release for him at that point because I guess he felt or he discovered the empowerment within him and then he wanted to share, which is typically what happens. You know, you cannot be inspired and not inspire others. It just,
Very true. Very, very true. Very true. And the
your
most
cup
inspirational
overflows.
people have needed inspiration.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
They just
it's
yes.
that's how
They are
life thinks it.
inspired and therefore they inspire you. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So there's yeah, and you know, men and women. I'm thinking back to a woman who approached me where the husband just walked out, leaving her and her kids behind, and that was very challenging. And she didn't receive too much help from her family. I guess more because they just couldn't help her from where they were.
Mm.
But yeah, she held a whole load of unforgiveness in her. She got her life together, okay, and
Okay.
I'm thinking these are at least 3 or 4 women recently who I've coached who've been in this situation.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's been a process to help them to release that energy and move forward, right? So that's how it is. But I guess they enjoy sitting with someone who understands, who does
Mm.
not judge them for even their feelings of unforgiveness. So I wouldn't want to tell them, you need to forgive them. I'd just like to first say, I understand that you do not want to forgive the person. I probably would feel the same way if I were you. Let's
Okay.
talk about that
Okay. Okay.
unforgiveness. And then we go deep into that, you see? So,
Very interesting. From
yes.
what you're saying, obviously, then to be a good coach, one needs to be able to hear what is said as well as what is not said. So it's very important that they be a good listener. But I'm just wondering, what, how do I identify a good coach? The need for coaching is now clear to me. How
Yeah.
do I identify a good coach?
Okay. So let's say you have a physical ailment and you want to go to a doctor. And typically, when I ask people around the world, you know, who's the doctor you prefer to go to? Most people say, oh, the doctor that I've been to for the last 20 years. It's the family doctor, right?
The one who delivered me.
Yeah, there you go. And that is the doctor who you are most comfortable with because you've been with them for a long period of time. There is a kind of energetic resonance with that person. And who built that resonance? Most likely your parents or somebody in your family, and then they took you there, and then that continues. And there is a trust factor that works with the person. Now, unless the doctor does something to break the trust, you continue to stay with the doctor. It's pretty much the same with a coach. People come to a coach when they resonate with the energy of a coach. And if someone asks me, well, how do I discern which coach I should go to? Well, speak to a couple of them, two or three of them on the phone. Maybe just have a conversation, 5 or 10 minutes, and sense in your body from their tone of voice and from the kind of conversation that you're having if you'd really like to extend this relationship further. We do this with friendships as well. In the first few minutes, we pretty much discern if this is a relationship I want to build or if this is a relationship I perhaps don't want to.
Okay.
And so pretty much every coach will have qualifications, ability, techniques, tools, and the means to help you. But the greatest value will come to you from a coach who you personally resonate with, who you have an alignment with.
Mm.
Pick the flavor of ice cream that you enjoy. Sense that from the coach, and you are intuitive enough to know in 5, 10, or 15 minutes tops. And very often people call me, and a number of my clients, one of the clients who I've finished, I think in 2 years, I've done like 15 coaching sessions with him. He keeps coming back to me every now so often, 3 more, 3 more, 3 more, 3 more, 3 more, 3 more. But the first time he met me, he just wanted to sit with me and have coffee in a coffee shop. And we did like a 30, 45 minute conversation and spoke about things, etc. And at the end of it, he says, okay, we're on.
Ah.
And
So
he
what
wasn't
is
asking me about coaching. We were just talking, you see?
just having a conversation with
Just
you,
having,
seeing whether you have a rapport. All right.
yes,
Okay. All
yes.
right. As usual, time will fly past. We are almost at the end of this. I want to not keep this more than an hour. So I want you to close with a few success stories. Give us a few examples of success stories that you've had in your coaching career.
Okay, success stories and coaching, great. Okay, so I'm thinking of an entrepreneur who was, well, he was in a job, wanted to get into business. I've done a number of sessions with him. My work primarily was to help him to release the anger that he had towards his ex-boss and his perception of being unfairly treated by that organization. Stepped out of his former employer with the motivation that I'm going to show him that I can build a business by myself, kind of, which I kind of put into the category of revenge, not revenge as in go and hurt someone, but I'm going to succeed and that's how I'll take my revenge. And I gradually helped him to transmute that energy of desperation to inspiration.
Oh, wow.
And today, his highest motivation is his children, his wife, the customers who he serves. And he's in love with his customers and he's built such amazing relationships. And his staff, the team that he works with, he speaks so highly about them. And to, to be a conduit of value creation in these people's lives. And once recently, a few months ago, when I brought up his ex-boss, he was blinking as if I was talking about a dinosaur. It
It
was
is so
not,
far away from
it
his
was
mind.
prehistoric memory, not even historic memory.
Wow. Wow.
But that brought him, the moment we were able to make that shift in intent. You see, there's content and there's intent. Content is the work you do, but the intent is your intention behind the content, right? He became lighter. He started doing yoga and his body posture improved. He had back pain, which magically disappeared. The stomach situation improved, all of that, And he's just a happy go lucky guy now. And
Beautiful.
funnily enough, he bumped into his ex boss at one of these forums where these people meet. And he actually gave him a hug and gave love to his ex-boss. And
Beautiful.
when we spoke about forgiveness at a later date, he no longer needed to forgive. Giving forgiveness was irrelevant because he no longer felt wronged. In fact, he realized that the skills that he had acquired through his corporate sojourn had now helped him to establish the business which he was in today. And he realized that a lot of that had come from the interactions with his boss. So he learns to balance. So when you blame someone, blame them elegantly. Don't just blame them for what they've not done for you. Blame them for what they have done good for you as well. So they hurt you, but how did they help you as well? And this is true for family and for ex-bosses in this case. But yeah, that's a great story that I have and I'm really proud of, that I was able to add value to that person and help
That's
them to
very
move ahead.
beautiful because the cliche that goes, nothing happens to you, things happen for you. A lot of times you need, I like when you say you blame somebody elegantly, because sometimes it's the boss who released you to go find your dream. You might never have had the guts to go find it, except you found yourself in a jobless situation. I've been able to change my entire business format thanks to COVID happening. Because if it hadn't happened, I was gliding by from day to day. So I can understand where your former client was coming from. That's very interesting. You tend to give a lot of male examples. Give us an example of a success story that was a
Heaps.
lady. Let's
Heaps.
be gender sensitive here.
I have actually coached more women than I have coached men.
Oh, that's interesting. I was just also going to say that a bigger majority of my audience tends to be female.
Yes.
A good idea for us to give a lady's example as well, a success story
Yes.
out of your coaching. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. So most recently, a woman who grew up in a relatively tumultuous environment. So now when you look at the three challenges that we have as human beings, the three challenges, number one is money or finances, okay? Number two is health, and number three is relationships. Okay, so these are the three major, these are the three challenges. When you've resolved your financial issues, your health issues, and your relationship issues, you pretty
Then,
much are well done.
mm,
Now, to me, the biggest of the three is relationships.
okay.
Yeah. So money comes and money goes, right? You lose money, you can earn it back. With health, there are strategies today. We have technology, we have fabulous tools, whether it is just using holistic means with vegan food or eating healthy or exercise, yoga, fitness, where you can, without spending too much money, you have the capacity to get your health back in order. It's possible, very, very possible. Even meditation can help you to improve your health. But the area that causes the most pain for people is relationships, particularly when a relationship ends. And a relationship ends when someone dies or when you go through a divorce. In fact, studies in psychology, psychotherapy show that the pain is pretty much equivalent. When somebody dies in your family, comparing that pain to the pain of you ending your marriage, they're very, very similar, sometimes equal. Sometimes the pain of the divorce is even greater than the pain of the loss of a loved one, because that person is still alive,
Mm.
you see. So I have coached a number of women, heaps and heaps and heaps of women who've been through the end of a relationship, divorce, and that kind of stuff, and women who've been through. And I'm just going to speak about one, but there are many women who I've coached who've been through physical abuse in their relationship, who were pretty violently assaulted by their ex-husbands for quite a period of time. And this is not culture specific. I've coached women in different cultures who've done this, who've had this experience. So that has been very interesting to help them to heal. And I take them through processes wherein I teach them to give themselves permission to grieve.
Okay. Okay.
And you have the hierarchy of emotions, and at the very base is depression, sadness, despair, or despondency. That's the base emotion. I call it the static emotion, or the most static emotion. And when you find somebody who's depressed and sad and despondent and in despair, typically, and now in today's corporate world, and women, as soon as they move out of a relationship, they want to get their house in order and get going, etc. But there is pain from that past which has not yet been resolved, which they are now carrying forward into a strategic approach. So they get onto the horse with sword in their hand, put on their armor and charge forward, but they're still feeling that pain. And I tell people this, I tell men and women this: if somebody is crying, the worst thing, the very, very worst thing to tell the person is, don't cry. That is the very worst thing to tell someone when they cry. Don't say
Because
it.
then you minimize their pain. You
Absolutely.
their pain, yes.
And you do not allow them to emote. You see, if someone wants to go to the bathroom, you don't say, don't go to the bathroom. No, it's a physical process of purging, isn't that right? To detoxify the physical body.
Mm.
Crying is detoxifying the emotional body. And with two of the women I'm thinking about right now who've been through that physical abusive relationship, the assignment that I gave them at the end of that session was a crying assignment. And I said, I will not.
An assignment to go cry.
To cry. That's it. And I quantified it. I said, so I'm going to meet you 7 days from now. I need you to have 4 crying sessions of 20 minutes each between now and the next time. How do I do that? I said,
You're taking the questions right out of my mouth.
Yeah. So then so she said, how do I do that? So I said, have you ever drunk too much alcohol? One of the women said, yes, I have. The other one said, I don't drink. I said, okay, if you have, and you want to throw up, and you can't sleep because there's all that. And so what do? You make yourself throw out. You touch the back of your tongue and you vomit, right? Now, it's the same thing even if you don't drink alcohol with food poisoning. If you go to a doctor, the doctor stimulates the vomit in you so that you get it out. Yeah, so that's how the body purges the toxin. After that, they give you medication, drip, and put you to sleep and all that kind of stuff. And then you heal. So now I want you to go back to that memory and stimulate it, because I need you to revisit that so that you give yourself permission to cry.
Go back
Allow yourself.
emotionally and with
Do
visualization.
not
Go
judge
back to the
yourself.
situation. Stop playing brave.
Yes.
Allow it to all come out. And if
Yes.
it's beginning to come out, that might be an effort for a lot of people, especially
It
like
is.
you're saying, if someone has been charging forward and stepping on it
Yeah.
and pretending it wasn't painful.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, and the biggest lie are the lies we're telling ourselves. Sometimes I have said to myself, it's okay, so often that I actually think it's okay. So I like that you ask them to go back to the situation and cry it out.
Yes. Very, very important. Allow that healing to take place.
Mm.
Don't, most people think that denial is a river in Egypt.
I like that. I like that. But we do live in denial a lot, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even as I'm listening to that particular example, I'm thinking, isn't there a cross somewhere between counseling and what you do? Because I've been through counseling myself, and I remember some of the things that you're saying coming up. Like, I remember my counselor saying that any emotion that is bottled tends to leak, and it could leak at the most inappropriate time and in the most inappropriate way, so that I haven't dealt with the loss of this relationship. I end up hitting my child in a moment of anger because the emotion has been bottled in, and now it's leaking and coming through. So does your work then not almost go into counseling at that point?
So here's, we started by talking about the difference between mentoring and coaching, and those borders are blurred. Now with counseling too, the border is blurred. With consulting through to the border is blurred. Because what is the overarching objective? For a business, the overarching objective is for the business to succeed and prosper. For an individual, the overarching objective is for the individual to succeed and prosper by his or her definition of success and prosperity.
What prosperity is. Okay.
That's
Okay.
right. You see,
Okay.
by their
So
definition.
you help me. Just to summarize what you do, you help me to move from where I am to where I want to go.
That's it.
I determine
Absolutely.
the destination. You show me the how to. We deal with everything I need to deal with in order to go there. Wow. That's very, very useful, Arjun. I think this has been at least for me, it's been very, very informative. It's been very, very building. I'm going to put the links to your contacts below this video,
Yes.
so that then anybody who wants to reach out to you can. And like we said, nowadays with the online nature of the way we work, you should be able to get in touch with them from wherever in the world
Sure.
they are. But I think this has been very, very useful. I'm very grateful that you took the time to do this. I'm very sure we will do this again. I see whenever we finish our conversations, I feel like we have barely begun. So I'm going to put your contact details below, and
Yes.
I'm going to have anybody get in touch with you directly who might need your services.
Yes.
Now, you
Fantastic.
know how we like to conclude this. What are your closing thoughts? Give us a little take home. I usually like to have a take home.
I will.
We could
I will.
summarize everything we've said about coaching and why we need
Yes.
coaching and everything into just one or two bullets. What would that be?
Sure. Since we are talking about coaching, let me leave our viewers with a couple of coaching tools. And these coaching tools are in the form of questions. I'm going to say these questions out loud, and I will say them in 1 or 2 minutes. And I would encourage anybody watching this video to take some time and contemplate responses to each of these questions, preferably write down the answers to these questions in order that you can discover your unique energy architecture, your life purpose. There are hundreds of questions around life purpose. I'm probably just going to share maybe 5 or 10 as we conclude here today. So here are some questions for you. These are introspective questions. Okay. Question number 1. What do I usually talk about? You are asking yourself this question. I'm placing the question to you. You're asking yourself. So this is a conversation between you and you, self-coaching. What do I usually talk about? Question number 2. What do I usually think about? What do I usually talk about? What do I usually think about? Question number 3, what do I usually dream about? Question number 4, what do I usually laugh about?
Wow.
Question number 5, what do I usually cry about or feel like crying about? Question number 6, what do I feel like singing about? What do I sing about or feel like singing about? Okay, so that's a set of 6 questions. If you really get into that, you can take it further from there. I'm going to give you another set of 4. Here's the set of 4. The set of 4. What do I like to do? What do I like to do? What do I love to do? What do I like to do? What do I love to do? What do I have to do? And what do I hate to do? That's a set of 4. That's a set of 4. So I gave you a set of 6. Now I'm giving you a set of 4. And to round it all off, I'm going to give you a set of 3.
Okay.
Well, actually, sorry. No, it's 6, 4, and the next one is also 4. This is also 4. Okay. This is also 4. This is deep. This is deeper. Okay. These are deeper 4. Question number 1, what will I live for? What will I live for? Question number 2, what will I love for? What will I live for? What will I love for? Question number 3, what will I fight for?
Okay.
Question number 4, what will I die for?
Whoa. You're spinning my head at the end of this, Arjun. You're totally spinning my head. This is where we should have begun. This is
Pretty
where we should
intense,
have
isn't it?
begun.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely intense. But I think if we took the time to think through these questions, it would really focus on the direction of our life. I think that would really focus the direction of our life. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. I will definitely get in touch with you and let's do this again very soon. All right. Thank you very much, Arjun, and
Thank
have a
you.
lovely day.
Thank you, Christine. Good day to
Okay.
you. Bye now.
Bye.